morning, we are going to discuss a little bit about baptism and get to know one of our beloved members of this community, Peter. So thank you so much for joining me. So Kathy Ann just read these beautiful scriptures about baptism and water, and I was looking, and we're going to hear about water in a little bit musically as well. And so I was wondering, do you have a baptism story that you want to share with us?
Yes. Karen sent me some questions earlier in the week, and the first question is, have you been baptized? And I had to think about that. I don't remember it, but yes, I was. My dad was a Lutheran, a very fine member of the Lutheran Church, and it was really important to him. And my mother was a Christian Scientist, and my dad suggested that we would be raised, the children would be raised as Christian Scientists as long as they were christened by a Lutheran minister. So that happened in our living room of our house. And so, yes. And so I haven't really witnessed a lot of baptisms, but I have to say that there have been a couple here in Ladera Church that were very meaningful to me and to observe, and it was lovely. And I think of it as representing purification. And we talked at lunch the other day about being part of a community and being welcomed into a community. And I think that is a lovely way to think about it.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the theme of baptism is that incorporation of water and the cleansing, but also the communal aspect. Water is something that we all need and is nourishing and life-giving. And so just wondering if you have any connections to water or a favorite water brand, perhaps.
Well, being around water, I grew up in Michigan, and I lived on the St. Clair River, which is a beautiful, beautiful strait of water that connects Lake Huron to Lake St. Clair. And so my life as a child was on the river all the time. I learned to sail on Lake Huron. And then when I went to college, in the years after college, I moved to Marblehead, Massachusetts, which is the sailing capital of New England. So I have wonderful memories of sailing with friends and being on the water for days at a time when I did some sailing from Long Island to Newport, Rhode Island with a friend more than once. So I do, and I do have lovely memories of being in warm water and snorkeling, and it's a very pure feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you talk about Massachusetts, and you're out in California now.
Right.
So what was that journey like? How did you come to be at Ladera?
Yeah, it was a series of events that really, all took place in time. And so I came out as a gay man when I was 43 years old. I was married for 16 years. I had 2 children. We were literally a mom and a dad and a dog and a cat and a minivan and a white picket fence. That was it. That was exactly where we lived in Marblehead. And so, in the years leading up to that, I, certainly was struggling with a lot of this. And there came a time when I just had to come out. And I was working for a small consulting firm and had an assignment in San Francisco at that time, right after I had come out, and my wife and I had separated, and I got a chance to kind of see what it's like to be here. And then the following year, completely out of the blue, I received a job offer from a friend that I had, an acquaintance that I had worked for 10 years previously, and he had a startup he was creating in San Mateo. And he asked me if I would come out and interview and be considered, and I did. So I am one of these people who either consciously or unconsciously ended up in California to reinvent himself, and that's how it happened. And it turned out to be a really quite natural progression of things. So I moved here in 1996. And I met Patrick, my partner, in 1996, and we started going out in 1997. So we're a long-term project of 24 years. And so my life, changed, and I think of it as time with my children and my wife, and that kind of a family, nuclear family, as the first chapter of my life, and all those events leading up to that. And I view my coming to California as the second chapter of my life. And then Patrick and I were dating for about 4 years. I lived in Patrick's house for a year, and that was to be our transition to find a place together. And so we found a house in Ladera in 2002. And I started coming to church here in 2003. So that's the chronology of everything.
Wow. And what was Ladera like in 2003?
The church?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was really wonderful. It was really thriving. It was full of good thinkers, as it still is today. So, but it was, and it was very welcoming. I had a very difficult experience in my own church, not being accepted once I came out. So I came to this church service at 10 o'clock in the morning, half an hour in.
Oh, yes.
So I came in that door, and I sat where Jane Land is, and I sat next to one of our members at the time. And she asked me, her name is Ann Galley, and she asked me how I happened to come into the service today. And I said, well, I'm a gay man, and I know this is an open and affirming church, so I thought I would just come and see what it's like. And she said, well, I'm not gay, but you are most welcome here, and I would be happy to answer any question you have about this church. And so that was my intro. And later, month later or so, 2 months later, I had attended here, pretty much each Sunday. And I received a letter from Pat Luck that said, we welcome you. We're so happy to have you joining us in worship. It was just really a lovely welcome. That's what it was like. I remember it all.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you had a very interesting spiritual journey growing up with two different faiths. And how has that developed for you over time?
Right. Well, I still love much of the teachings that I grew up with. So as a Christian Scientist, there was, a studious kind of approach to church, and a lot of Bible study and studying of the teachings of the church, and an emphasis on prayer and healing, which I still love very much, and a concept of God as love, infinite love that I cherish. So all of that has stayed with me. And the thing that's wonderful about Ladera Community Church is that I can bring all of that and not have to give up all of that. So, but at the time, and it's changing now, it's changing too slowly, but it is changing. So many churches, including the Christian Science Church, are very slow to recognize that it's okay to be gay, and that it's not a sinful choice that you're making. But it was slow. And at the time, I tried to stay with it. And you had asked me earlier, was there a time in your life when you were struggling with your faith? And the answer is from 1993 to 2003. So there was 10 years of struggle there where I wanted to stay with it and I tried different Christian Science branch churches around the Bay Area, and I never found anything that was really, really welcoming. And I needed that. I needed to be welcomed. So yeah, that's one of the aspects of all of this. So, but I haven't been able to I haven't needed to give up some of the teachings that I love, and have been able to, keep them with me here.
Yeah, one of the cornerstones of the UCC, United Church of Christ faith, is that welcoming presence, and that God is still speaking and evolving. And so I love that you are able to take those Christian Science prayer and God's love and bring them in, because that's
Yeah.
also very UCC too, that we all
Yes.
have our own individual spiritual practices that nurture us.
Yes. Yes.
So I know that you are very much a part of the community, whether it's advocacy or running. So what are some other things that sustain you and build you up?
Right. Well, you had asked me like, how is that? And I thought about it, and it's just really part of my DNA that I love being part of groups and being of service. And that's so, like volunteering is really, pretty natural to me and something I really do enjoy and love. So I'm a member of Baylands Front Runners, which is a gay running club, and that's where I met Patrick. We are a significant presence here on the peninsula to provide healthy and engaging physical running activities for gay men and women and our friends. And it has been an amazing group to be part of all these years. And I'm so happy that I was able to put together a number of activities largely around environmental habitat restoration, those kinds of projects that I inherited from Linda Trey Nightingale. And I ran those for about 5 years, beach cleanups and habitat restoration. And I got a group of front runners together with church folks, and it's been terrific. And one time we were at the Redwoods in Los Altos doing that project, and we were in a circle, as we always do with Grassroots Ecology is the group that we usually work with. And I was standing next to the young project manager. And so he's very versed at, facilitating that kind of welcoming thing. And so we each said our name and where we were from. And so I think somebody from the club said, well, that we're from Baylands Front Runners, and we're a gay and lesbian running club. And then somebody from the church said they were from Ladera Community Church. And he's under his breath, but he said, whoa. And he just was not expecting that there could be, a group together of 30 people that would be of, these two different groups. And that's, again, been a huge impact on me to be able to bring people together like that. So I love volunteering, and I love community activity, and I love doing things in groups. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I really appreciate about you is how you take these things that other people are passionate about and you think about them and then apply them to your life. And you were sharing with me some of the ways that Ladera has had an impact, especially environmentally, with how you live and move and be. And I was wondering if you can expand on that a little bit.
Yes. Patrick and I have a pretty green household, and that has evolved over the years. And, we have LED lights, and we have, low water usage toilets, and we try and we compost, and a lot of that has been through the influence that I've received here from starting to pay attention to those things, which I never did. And, I grew up in the Midwest, and I'm sad to say this, but if you travel back to the Midwest, it's not quite as evolved, and on these topics, and it can be very jarring to be told, yeah, just throw it in the trash, and think like, oh no. So I'm grateful for the stewardship of the earth, that concept that is so well understood in this congregation, and that's an example. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what else do you do at home? What are some of your passions and things that you and Patrick like to do and that you like to do?
Yeah. Well, I'm a good cook, and that's something that's evolved over time too. I always had kind of an interest and could do it. I could do it at a very young age. My mom taught school, and so she would write out the steps to get dinner going so that I would get dinner going, and then she would come home, from working. And I wouldn't really say that I was cooking then, but I certainly had kind of a sense of what had to be done. And then that evolved. And then as Patrick and I have been together, he's a great eater and never puts on any weight. So, I love to cook. And also Patrick's been wonderful about not caring what time we eat. So if I want to like work in the kitchen for a long time and we eat late as we did last night, I mean, that seems to be okay. So I love to cook, and the potlucks at the church here that we did for annual meeting and other times we've gathered to discuss issues in people's homes at potlucks, that has been something I've really loved. So I'm a really good cook, and I love to share that. Yeah.
Well, we're excited for the annual meeting.
Yeah.
And what you'll be bringing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one of the things we've kind of talked about recently is gathering, and then that sense of conversation around truth and love and peace. And so I love the story that you just shared about runners and people who go to church and the gay community, all just being a part of something that is natural to us and that we do together. And I think we all laughed when he said, whoa, because we think it's funny that other people don't think that
Whoa.
those
Yeah.
things can happen and that we can live together, but we do, and we thrive because of it. So where else do you see peace and love and truth in the world and then here at church?
Well, certainly my family is remarkable. So, we are a modern family, and that has taken a lot of work. But I have to say that my relationship to Cynthia, my former wife, and Patrick's relationship to Cynthia, and my relationship to Connie, Patrick's former wife, and his son and his grandson, and Patrick's relationship to my children and grandchildren is remarkable. And we celebrate Christmas month, and because there's no way that we can all hit it on December 25th. So, but all of that and all of the logistics and some of the disappointments and all of that are kind of wrapped up together, in the end, there's much love and much joy and peace, in those gatherings, and being able to be together as much as we can. So, and it does take work. Patrick and I are watching, we're not binging on it, but we are watching Coming Out Colton on Netflix right now. And Colton, I don't know his last name, this stunningly handsome young man who's 29 years old, was an NFL player, came out as gay. Things really went south. He almost committed suicide. There's a lot. He was on The Bachelor, and went the whole time with, I don't know if did he get married? I can't remember if he got married or not, but certainly was really involved with, at least one of the women on the program, all the reality TV. So the series is presented somewhat as reality TV, which I'm not a big fan of. But last night, it was the episode about his faith journey. And he grew up in the Midwest, and went through Catholic school, and his friends, his basketball team of friends from church, really important to him. And he encountered them in this episode last night, and it did not go well. And he came out to them, and he came out to his pastor, and that did not go well. And so it was, I was sitting there watching this saying, yep, that's how it all works. That's how it can go down. And then at the end, his gay friend took him to an MCC church that had a rainbow flag hanging outside, and they went in for a small conversation with a few of those members and the pastor of that congregation in Denver, I think. And it was completely different. And the message that he got from that minister was that we do not need to be redeemed. We are redeemed. And it's our job to live into the grace of God. And I thought, well put. So, yeah, I've experienced that. And so to have my family really turn around, because it was, it wasn't there all in the beginning. But to have the love and the support of my family now has been, wonderful. So that's one place where I definitely see love and peace at work.
Yeah. I think your story is so important to share, because there are parts of all of us that we're not sure others will accept, whatever it may be. And to be able to share that part with others is one thing, but also, as you said, to be able to be accepted and loved and to live into that is another gift of freedom.
Right.
So.
Right. And so I think Ladera Church does a good job of affirming people like me. And it's not just that we're happy that you're here. And it's not that we're happy that you're here giving money. We're happy that you're here because you're participating as an active member of this church. And that's what I had to have. And that's what was clearly not going to happen, in my previous experience once I came out. So, yeah, affirming people is allowing them to thrive and be who they are, and integrate them consciously, and not just say we love you, which is what Colton's friends did last night. We love you, and then you could just hear the but, we love you, and then it was, but homosexuality is a sin. So that all had to be worked through, and he's still working through it in the episode that we're in right now. But there's hope.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's the message really of the gospel, is that hope springs eternal.
Yes.
That hope is always there and present. So thank you so much for sharing. And I was wondering, is there anything specifically, a message of hope or joy, or even something else that you want to go deeper into this morning?
Oh gosh, I wanted to be able to say everything I've just said. So that was really, core to what I wanted to convey. But I guess what I would say is that it does take work. It's not as though this is all automatic. And so, for young people, it's different today for young people. They've got it. In some places in the world, they've got it a little bit easier because there's more of a recognition that, we are all individuals and we're all on our own path. And, if you are gay or trans or non-binary or however that is being expressed in you, that's your path, that's your journey. But that doesn't mean that, you don't want to participate in other communities. And so to be able to welcome people it's really critical. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
especially sharing on the day that we celebrate baptism.
Yes.
Because baptism is that great welcome into our community of faith. And so thank you for being here and for sharing. And Patrick, thank you for supporting Peter and being part of this community as well. So we welcome you. We love you. And one of the things I like to do during worship time is just invite us all to participate in the welcome by turning to the person next to you and saying, "You are welcome here." So let us all turn to someone and say, "You are welcome here."
You are welcome here.
You're welcome here. And you are welcome here.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Peter, for being with us this morning.